Introducing a completely redesigned experience that you can sense. And that senses you. The new Dell Latitude laptops bring your work closer to you.
This is 9 News with Peter Overton.
Good evening. A group of armed home invaders is on the run tonight after ransacking a home in Melbourne's northern suburbs and terrorising the family inside. Nine's Reid Butler is live for us at police headquarters in Melbourne. Reid, good evening. Anyone hurt?
Yes, Peter, including a 57-year-old woman who was dragged to the ground. She suffered head injuries as a result of that. We spoke to her adult son, Gurinder Singh, today. He was also inside the Kalkallo home when this was all unfolding, and he too was injured. He suffered machete wounds to his arms as these thieves did everything they could to make off with as much as they could, and they certainly did a good job at that, stealing up to $30,000 worth of property, including jewellery and cash. They used pot plants to smash their way through the windows of this property in the early hours. And to say that this was a horrifying experience for the Singh family would be an understatement. Just listen to the screams coming from Gurinder's wife in this security footage.
My actions could have caused a lot of things to my family, and that could stay for the rest of their life. I didn't do anything. I just stayed calm.
Thankfully, Gurinder's wife and their 2 children who were also inside the property were not injured. Those men responsible remain on the run this evening, Peter, so shaken up by this experience. The Singh family say they want to sell their property and move elsewhere. OK, Reid, thank you. Now to a story. We have new developments in the search tonight for the bodies of 2 missing men believed to have been murdered in Sydney. Investigators tracking the movements of a police officer accused of killing TV presenter Jessie Baird and flight attendant Luke Davies. With more on this story, Nine's Ruth Wynne Williams is in the Sydney newsroom for me. Ruth, where has this search moved to?
Detectives have now zeroed in on a rural area 170 kilometres to our city's south. Members of the dive squad spending a lot of time searching a dam this afternoon alongside a team of homicide investigators near the town of Marulan, right on the edge of a vast and cavernous national park near Goulburn. We've been told nightfall has now ended that search for today, but it comes after someone known to murder-accused officer Beau Lamar Condon provided information this weekend to New South Wales Police about his movements. There is a 5-day window between when Lamar Condon's alleged to have shot Jessie Baird and Luke Davies and when the 28-year-old handed himself into police. It takes around an hour and a half to reach this location. Police allege Lamar Condon hired a white Hi-Ace van to transport the bodies of these 2 men. Right now, Pete, he is not cooperating with police. There have been a number of sites of interest, but activity at this site intensified this afternoon, Pete.
All right, Ruth, thank you so much. A new poll has come out tonight on the state of play when it comes to voters and their views of the government and the coalition. I spoke with Nine's political editor Charles Croucher from Parliament House a little earlier.
Well, Pete, an exclusive poll released tonight by Resolve Political Monitor for our colleagues at the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, it shows a continued decline of the government standings. The coalition now leads Labor on primary votes, 37 to 34. This is the first time since the last election that the opposition has led the primary vote in this poll. It's also above their primary vote at that election. Anthony Albanese is still the preferred Prime Minister, leading 39-32, but that lead is just a quarter of the lead he held in May last year. It is a continuation of the slide for the government, a slide Labor hoped would have been stopped by the changes to Stage 3 tax cut. This poll suggests there is more work to do, and that will put pressure on the budget in May. Before that, the crucial by-election in Dunkley, that's next week. The Prime Minister was there this morning, Pete, and he'll have a lot more riding on the result Saturday night.
All right, Charles, thank you. New details tonight of what is shaping up as the largest overhaul of higher education in a generation. The university's Accord final report, launched in Sydney, recommending more places for low and middle income students.
On Smart Street, hoping to make the streets a little smarter.
Universities change lives if they're managed well, and universities can change nations.
Among the recommendations, 80% of Australians receive university or higher level technical qualifications by 2050, with more than 1 million extra Commonwealth supported places targeting areas of national skill shortages while making help payments easier to get and pay off.
I've made it pretty clear that my priority is helping more kids from the outer suburbs and the regions, more kids from poor families get a crack at university.
The review also wants more free bridging courses for students that don't initially qualify for uni and introducing payments for previously unpaid work placement training in nursing, care and teaching.
So that they can fill those jobs, drive that economy, as well as provide a good quality of life for themselves and their families.
This would cost many billions of dollars to deliver, and we are certainly concerned that the government has really raised expectations.
Business and science groups have welcomed the report, while universities support it but are wary of costs, with suggestions tonight wealthy unis should help poorer ones.
I believe this is the most important contribution to tertiary education for decades.
This doesn't come for free. So that'll be a challenge for government in terms of how it closes the circle.
This is one of 3 reviews into Australia's education sector. The government believing longer-term reform can lead to a longer time in power.
The agreement I strike this year and the election that we fight next year will determine the future of public education.
The report tonight with the government. The first changes will be included in the budget in May. Charles Croucher, 9 News.
A man has been killed in a fiery crash involving a cattle truck in Queensland. Nine's Kate Lamb has the details for us. Kate, good evening. Multiple others were injured.
They were, Pete, and sadly tonight I can confirm that a 28-year-old man has died and 4 others were taken to hospital, including 2 firefighters who arrived to find this fireball engulfing a cattle truck on the Cunningham Highway at Ipswich, southwest of Brisbane. Now, we understand that the cattle truck hit head-on with a Subaru that 28-year-old man was driving. His car then ploughing into another vehicle with a woman and her young boy then taken to hospital with minor injuries. Fortunately, somehow the truck driver has managed to escape unharmed. Some of his cattle also did, but sadly other livestock could not be saved. It was an incredibly distressing scene for both witnesses as well as those first responders who were on scene. Now it's up to police to try and find out exactly why and how this tragedy unfolded, to try and give some answers to the family of that 28-year-old man who are mourning his death tonight. Pete.
Kate, thank you. The fire threat in Victoria is worsening tonight, with residents northwest of Ballarat told they should shelter indoors because it's too late to leave. An out-of-control blaze in Mount Lonark is right now spreading in an easterly direction, putting homes and lives at risk.
Red hot and still burning out of control. For residents from Raglan to Mount Cole, northwest of Ballarat, it's still not safe to return home.
It's stressful, it's upsetting.
6 houses and dozens of sheds have been wiped out since the fire started on Thursday. As the fire spreads north, crews on the ground and in the air tackle the fierce flames. Roads blocked off as trees threaten to fall. The mammoth effort is being managed by a team of experts at the Ballarat Control Centre.
We've currently got a lot of ground crews working to control the fire. We've got a lot of heavy plants, so bulldozers and excavators.
They're hoping to contain the 17,500 hectare blaze before Wednesday, when temperatures are expected to soar to 40 degrees.
We're expecting not only high temperatures, but also wind is expected.
As the firefighting effort continues, assessments are underway to determine exactly how many homes have been impacted. As for the amount of livestock lost, it's still too early to tell. And it may be until well after this coming Wednesday.
We really want our communities to be aware and remain vigilant on that day, and obviously make their plans in the lead up to that day.
In Amphitheatre, Gillian Lantouris, 9 News.
You're watching Nine's Late News, broadcast across the country. Still to come, 1 arrest every 4 days, why one state has taken tough measures against youth crime, and are they working? Shock political comeback, Donald Trump edges closer to securing his party's presidential nomination. The Australian soldiers playing a crucial part in a war that is stretching on as Ukraine prepares to mark 2 years since it was invaded. It's been revealed one of South Australia's most significant police operations is now busier than ever. Michaela Komarek is in Adelaide for us tonight. Michaela, good evening. The task force which targets youth crime has been averaging one arrest every 4 days.
Yeah, that's right, Pete. In the past year alone, Operation Mandrake has netted 86 criminals. The specialised task force was set up 2 decades ago and it targets young offenders committing violent home invasions. Now, SA Police hope they'll soon have new powers to arrest the ringleaders involved in recruiting these young and often vulnerable kids. SA government has recently proposed new laws which would target those recruiters. Take a listen.
Where someone is continually offending, that's the cases that we'll put before the court and make a very strong submission to keep those people in custody.
Now, SA Police says the task force is continually evolving and they hope to one day deter these youths from committing these crimes rather than just arresting them for it. Pete?
Michaela, thank you. The WWE has been issued an open invitation to return down under after last night's event exceeded expectations in Perth. The WA government is now wrestling a new fight, looking to lure another UFC event.
Last night's showcase is estimated to have reached about 1 billion people across the world. The international telecast showed more than just the action inside the ring.
There is Optus Stadium in downtown Perth, home of Elimination Chamber.
Went to script, the Aussie champ retaining her title. WA's tourism minister this morning made an honorary champ. Is yet to be calculated, but the event has exceeded the government's expectations. WA taxpayers will never know how much they paid to attract the likes of Logan Paul.
52,000 people at the stadium last night, well above our projections.
I travelled in from Sydney, so 5.5-hour flight, been here since Thursday.
I came from Melbourne. I got one of the on-location priority pass tickets, which is about 2,000. And then flights, hotels, has been a lot.
For now, the state government has picked a new fight, currently in talks to bring back the Ultimate Fighting Championship. WWE and UFC recently merged, a deal proving to be a winning combination for fight fans here in Perth.
All right, Michael, thank you. Donald Trump appears to be staging one of the biggest political comebacks in US history after a commanding victory in the latest Republican primary. Nikki Haley's campaign suffering a crushing defeat in her home state of South Carolina.
We're going to be up here on November 5th and we're going to look at Joe Biden and we're going to look him right in the eye. He's destroying our country and we're going to say, Joe, you're fired. Get out. Get out, Joe.
We need to beat Joe Biden in November. I don't believe Donald Trump can beat Joe Biden.
The South Carolina primary is a strong indicator of who will become the Republican candidate. Dangling several stories above the New York pavement, a resident has clung to a firefighter who was lowered down to rescue them from a burning building. Several residents hung out of windows, desperate to be saved, when flames tore through a Harlem apartment block. One person died and 17 others were injured. Pope Francis has cancelled his engagements due to a flu-like condition. A statement from the Vatican says it's a precautionary measure, but the 87-year-old has had several health problems in recent years. In November last year, he cancelled an international trip due to breathing difficulties. Well, the gender pay gap is now the highest for public sector workers in a decade. Figures tabled in New South Wales State Parliament show the median salary for female-led jobs, like nurses and teachers, increased by 2.5% to more than $94,500 between 2022 and 2023, while colleagues in male-dominated industries like transport received a 4.4% increase to over $100,000. The Australian Defence Force is playing a key role training Ukrainian soldiers for battle against Russian troops as the war in Ukraine passes the 2-year mark. Our troops heading up a special leadership program, and 9 News was invited to a secret training camp in the UK.
Gunfire from the roofs and the windows. Mortar blasts booming. Smoke grenades shielding troops trying to advance and seize control of each building. Urban warfare in the English countryside. There's no live ammunition, but it's no game. These battle-hardened Ukrainian soldiers are undergoing specialised training.
It was hard psychologically, mentally, because you're far from your family for extended period of time. My family had to escape from the territory where the war was going on.
Many have already fought against Russia's forces. This weekend marks 2 years since Ukraine was invaded. World leaders travelling to Kyiv as a show of support. Something Ukraine is asking for more of from the West. A minute of silence in memory of our fallen heroes, President Volodymyr Zelensky says. Ihor has seen many fall while fighting in Kharkiv, Bakhmut and Donetsk.
I've been serving in the brigade that was on the front line when the war started, so yeah, we've been prepared. We are military personnel.
Playing the enemy here is a mix of Defence Force personnel from 12 nations, including Australia, which is running this leadership-focused program.
The idea with the scenarios is to replicate as much of the combat situation in Ukraine as possible. We have weapon effects such as that sound right there behind me to indicate artillery and indirect fire.
35,000 Ukrainians have completed this training since 2022.
And that covers everything from the field environment, in rural areas, in, as you see, an urban facility behind me, in trench warfare, in small arms instruction, so with their weapon systems.
This is the final phase of training for this particular group of soldiers. In the coming days, they'll be heading back to Ukraine, where they'll apply what they're learning here in real-world scenarios.
So we're definitely moving towards victory.
It's very humbling and privileged kind of feeling to be having this key role as part of the mission.
A war with no end in sight. In eastern England, Edward Godfrey, 9 News.
When we come back, finance, and there's some crucial economic data out this week. Scott Phillips will join me for his regular look at the week ahead. It's time now for our regular look at finance with our late news money man, Scott Phillips, Chief Investment Officer from the Motley Fool. Scott, good evening. We had some big businesses releasing their half-year earnings this week. What did we learn about the health, if you like, of corporate Australia?
Peter, good evening. Yeah, we absolutely did. In fact, some really, really big businesses, a bank, a supermarket. We saw plenty of companies out with really important data. The best thing I probably think we can say about this is it was better than it could have been. The numbers are pretty pedestrian, quite honestly. Most of the large companies in Australia are getting very, very modest sales growth and profit growth. But in the current economic circumstances, that's actually a pretty good result. So we're kind of getting through. And the great news there is businesses that are still growing sales and profits are still likely to keep employing Australians. That is, of course, the most important number as we go through 2024.
Scott, with this new RBA calendar, there's no meeting on the first Tuesday of the month, so we've got to get used to, I think, happening every 6 weeks. How important, though, will the CPI data be this week?
It's going to be really important, Peter, because we've seen the CPI, the inflation rate, slowly but steadily decline here in Australia. The watch out is in the US. They actually had a modest bump up in inflation, a reminder that it's not going to necessarily be a smooth and steady fall. In fact, that is their forecast. The consensus estimate is actually for an increase from 3.4% in December to 3.5% in January. Not panic station, not anything to worry about necessarily, but a reminder that the path won't necessarily be smooth from here.
All right, retail sales, they come out, that information on Thursday?
These are probably even more important, actually, mate. Normally it's CPI, but the last couple of months of retail sales have been fascinating. We had a massive jump in November, largely because of the Black Friday sales. We kind of expected that. We also expected it would drag sales forward from December, and that ended up being true. December sales were down 2.7%, which is a remarkable reduction. Now, again, you've got to look at the 2 months together, November and December. Even if you do, that's still a decline. Now, the health of the economy, the health of consumer spending is probably the canary in the coal mine. We are expecting a bounce back. We're expecting growth of about 1.5% when those numbers are released later this week. But any variance from that probably, as well as CPI, are the two numbers the RBA will be looking most closely at.
And very quickly, Scott, before we go, what should we expect tomorrow when our market opens?
This is quick and easy, Pete. Hopefully a gain of about 0.4% if the ASX futures are correct. Hopefully a positive start to the trading week on Monday.
Scott Phillips from the Motley Fool. As always, thanks for joining us on the Late News.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you, Peter.
Stay with us. Your weather details are next.
Switch on on a Daikin Alira X split system with advanced streamer technology to remove more than 99% of harmful indoor air pollutants and surround yourself with cleaner air this summer. Daikin, perfecting the air.
Welcome back. Let's have a look at the national weather forecast for the week ahead. Tomorrow it will be partly cloudy with possible showers in Brisbane, a top of 32. A shower or two for Sydney, a top of 28 degrees. Mostly sunny and 31 for Canberra. A possible morning shower in Melbourne, 21. Hobart cloudy, 21 as well. A few clouds for Adelaide, expecting 29 degrees. Mostly sunny in Perth, 32. And Darwin, a possible storm, 32 as well. Looking ahead to Tuesday, Brisbane mostly sunny and 31. Sydney a shower or two, 27 degrees. Cloudy and 27 the tops for Canberra. 31 the top in Melbourne. Hobart mostly sunny, expect 25 degrees there. Sunshine and a warm 36 in Adelaide. Perth mostly sunny, 29 degrees, and showers with a possible storm for Darwin topping out at 32. That wraps up Nine's Late News for this Sunday. Our next news is at 5 a.m, followed by the Today Show. I'm Peter Overton. Thanks so much for joining us on behalf of the team. Good night.